Hi everyone, welcome back to the sixth episode of Wednesday Career Refocus at 7, the live show on LinkedIn and YouTube where we talk to people in interesting, inspiring careers and we learn to think beyond the ordinary careers. Our today's guest is a very special guest because they are going to share a very interesting and inspiring journey of what it means to be an entrepreneur. Uh, our guest is Parth Pareek, who is the co-founder of Loopin. Lupin is a modern calendar app that helps make remote work much easier. It also boosts your productivity and keeps you super accountable to your goals. How? We'll see all of that during this live show. But before that, let me introduce you to Parth.
Yeah,
Hi,
Angsha.
Parth. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Angsha. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
Awesome. So, the people who are watching it right now, please feel free to leave your questions in the chat. If you have any questions for Parth or for me during this show, please feel free to leave it in the comments. All right, Pat. I already gave a very brief introduction about you, but I would love for my audience to hear it in your own voice. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, your career journey, where it started, and where you are now. I'm sure everyone would be very interested to hear your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently, I'm building this product called Lupin. Lupin is basically a command center for knowledge workers, and we'll get Lupin, hopefully in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, since you specifically asked for my career journey, I started my journey as an engineer. I went to engineering school, and after graduating from engineering school, I left engineering behind. So I've dabbled my hands in a few different things right after engineering school. So I started my career with consulting, did consulting for a couple of years. After that, I moved into an early stage boutique startup. Um, and this startup was building a collaborative design platform, and these were pre-Figma days. So that was a fantastic experience working with that company, scaling that organization. And I worked in sales and marketing out there. And that experience of growth taught me a lot of things. And that startup was acquired by Freshworks in 2015. When that happened, I moved to the US. I've lived in the US for the last 7 8 years now. And I moved to US for my grad school. And after doing grad school, for a couple of years, I joined Samsung, as a product manager. So I've sort of lived my last decade in consulting, in growth, marketing, sales, in product management, and now over the past year, I've been building Lupin. So yeah, I think all of these experiences sort of have come together to help me shape like what I'm building, and like help me be like a better entrepreneur.
That's amazing. Like you have had so much experience in so many different companies. I'm sure it would have like a lot of impact in what you're building and how your customers are using it, right? How they see it. So can you tell us a little bit about the Loopin origin story? Like how did you get the idea? How did you convert it? And how is it going now? How has it evolved so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, before I get there, let me tell everyone a little bit more about Lupin and what is Lupin. So Lupin, as I said it, like Lupin is a command center for knowledge workers. So step one, let's start with the basics. Who is a knowledge worker? So in the simplest of terms, anybody who's creating knowledge is a knowledge worker. So if you use your laptop for doing your work, and you can sit out of a cafe or an office or your home, very likely you are a knowledge worker. um, so our goal with Lupin is essentially that um, there's just so much distraction as a knowledge worker. Like these distractions range from the largest of things that you hear about out there, which is um, like I waste my time in meetings, right? And I hate meetings, and this meeting could have been an email. People coming to a meeting and then not knowing why they are there, not having any context behind the meeting, right? So these distractions come in different shapes and forms. So this is one form of it, where you waste a lot of time. And then you have other forms of it, which could be, well, where is this document, right? Where somebody gave me this work to do, and I don't know where's this email, and I don't know, like it's definitely lying somewhere in Slack, but I don't know where it is, right? So all these little things where you spend, like, perhaps only like a few minutes, but it sort of pulls you away from the context of the task. It sort of pulls you away from your flow. Like our goal with Lupin is essentially to um, simplify like a lot of these things that I just talked about, and help knowledge workers be productive and drive their entire workday via Lupin. Taking a step back, since you asked me like how did I sort of come about with the idea of Lupin, so I have like a couple of the co-founders as well, and who I'm working with, Anurag and Mehul, and the three of us, we've known each other for about a decade, um, the three of us individually, were having like different issues at work, and that sort of shaped and got transformed into the idea of Lupin over time. But like me personally, my issues were like pretty much just stemmed from these distractions, right? And not knowing how I was spending my time at work, not knowing, um, or rather knowing, how heavy some of these operational tasks are, and how much time I could have potentially saved not doing like some of these operational tasks, like not having to like follow up with people. Hey, is it done yet? Right. So as a product manager at Samsung, I was just spending so much time in these activities, that like when COVID hit, I decided to take a step back and realize that, well, I'm on a verge of burning out. Let's take a hard look at where can I potentially save time. How can I put this time back into work or not work, right? Just taking a little bit of break. So um, yeah, that's how we sort of came about with the idea of Lupin.
That's really amazing. I read in one book about entrepreneurship. I don't remember which book it was, but there they said that if you want to build something, don't think of a product idea, but think of a problem that is currently there in the people that you see as a target audience, and then solve that problem. So you literally did that with Lupin, and it's just so amazing. Uh, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be so helpful for so many people. But can you show us like how Lupin can help people be productive? A little bit about like how people can use Lupin to stay focused on jobs or be more productive during their day. I'm sure everyone watching right now would really appreciate a small look into how you also manage to stay productive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, firstly, since you mentioned, entrepreneurs should look for ideas, in their surroundings and like what they are doing. 100% with you on that, right? It's if you're solving your own problem, at least you're gonna have like one customer, right? Like, but I mean, jokes aside,
Exactly.
jokes aside, but if you are running into a problem, it is very likely that there are others around you who are just like you, who are running into the exact same set of problems. You are not unique in any way, and with the kind of work that we are doing these days, it's very likely that others sort of run into the exact same trap, right? So with Lupin, we did exactly the same. I mean, we had the problem, so we went and spoke out to a bunch of people who seem to share the exact same problem. um, so yeah, I mean, talking about like Lupin in particular, right, and how Lupin can potentially help you. Let me actually see if I can perhaps share my screen as well, just to give you like a little bit sneak peek
Yes,
of
for
Lupin.
sure.
But
Yeah.
um, Yeah. Anyway, so sorry for this. Yeah, but can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your
Yeah.
screen.
So I think, before I get into like the specifics of Lupin in particular, but I think to remain productive at work, like what you really need is to be disciplined. And discipline comes in like various shapes and forms. For starters, there's like two parts to it, right? Like, so one is just your physical work environment, and what it takes for you to be calm, for you to be peaceful with your surroundings, right? So like whatever sort of rocks your boat. I personally have like a very specific desk setup. I like to keep things a very particular way. I do like change my work environment as well like on, I wouldn't say frequent, but every like few days. I would want to work out of a coffee shop, or I would want to work out of a specific place. So there's that one part. But apart from that, I think I typically just like to start my day with just planning my work. So every single day, let me actually get into Lupin, right? So every single day, you might be seeing my calendar, right? I have like a little bit of a block for just deciding what is it that I'm going to be working on throughout the day. So when I do that, I typically jot down like things that I have to work on. So uh, and I do this on an ongoing basis, right? So I haven't. It's still a little bit earlier than usual for me, so I haven't really gotten to this just yet. But these are tasks that I thought about like doing yesterday, things that I thought I'm going to be working on today. So, I in that time block, I just think about things that I want to be working on today, and I like to sort of think about making like a very realistic list as well, right? It's not supposed to be like um, you know it doesn't have to be like everything under the sun. It's supposed to be like a little bit more realistic list where you don't get disappointed, right? Like, so a to-do list is basically your expectation of what you're going to be doing the entire day. But if it doesn't match the reality, if all this work that I've planned for the day is going to take me like 20 hours in the day, there's no way on earth I can get to it. So to keep it realistic, like the other thing that I do is, once I've jotted down like every single thing that I'm going to be doing in the day, I pretty much just block time on my calendar for doing that work. So I already have my meetings for the day set up, and with Lupin, essentially, I pretty much just block time in the day. So there's this one little thing that I have to do, and it's potentially going to take me like an hour and a half, right? So what I do is I just block time on my calendar for doing it, and I do this like in pretty much like a 30-minute time slot every single day. So that's the first thing. The second thing is throughout the day, I keep a tab on just making sure am I getting to it or not. So if you look at my day yesterday, I pretty much just check things off as I get to it. It sort of gives me like that adrenaline boost as well, that well, I am really having a productive day, and I can absolutely just go and crush it. So this is perhaps like just like a little bit of like how I like to do my planning in the day. There's like a little bit of more stuff that Lupin does for you, but without getting into too much of that, my day planning is perhaps like one thing that definitely keeps me like productive throughout the day. And then like anything that I'm unable to get to, right? I pretty much just move it to the following day. But the idea is for you to just get better at planning your entire work. And yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
I love that. It's so actionable and it's also very relatable. In fact, you were talking about changing your physical surroundings, right? Working from a cafe. Like recently, my friend and I, we made a pact that she also lives in like Hyderabad, where I'm staying currently. So we made a plan
Uh-huh.
that every week, at least one day, we'll go out to a cafe and work from the cafe because otherwise it gets very monotonous seeing the same
Yeah.
scenery, surroundings around you every day,
Yeah.
right? I totally love that. I even recently wrote about it on LinkedIn, like how changing your surroundings can impact your work. Another
It
thing that you
absolutely
said, like,
does. It absolutely does. And like especially when you have like a very different thing that you want to do in the day, and you absolutely want to crush it, I think changing your surroundings, changing your environment, definitely feels like a productivity boost in itself. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes, that's true. One important thing is, before you actually go to a cafe to work, you need to have a clear agenda. Otherwise, you just end up wasting time. That has happened to me also. So I learned from that past mistake that nowadays, whenever I go out to a cafe to work, I make a detailed list of tasks to do it. So that helps a lot. Uh,
And I'm sure
then,
you
then
should be doing that every single day, not just the
of
cafe
course.
days.
Of course, of course. So yeah, that's what I was about to say next. Like since you mentioned planning your day in advance, planning your day before you start, that also resonates with me a lot because I like to plan my next day before I sleep, so I don't get overwhelmed in the morning. Okay, I'm so sorry. My dog is barking, but yeah, it's all right. So yeah, that really. Otherwise, when I wake up in the morning, I feel that oh, there is no task, and I start getting caught up in a non-important task, and then my energy is gone. So planning your day and prioritizing your task also like is a very important part of what you said that resonates with me a lot.
Yeah. I
uh,
mean,
Aside
100%.
from
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, aside from that, I also find that like you mentioned that you check the tasks that you have done in the previous day. I also find that reviewing your to-do list helps a lot because then you can identify what items take a lot of time, and then you can find ways to make them easier, or you can delegate them, or do something that takes a less amount of your time and effort. So that's really amazing. All the points that you mentioned are so actionable, and I'm sure they would be like really valuable for whoever is watching right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that reinforcement, as you put it, like is truly important, right? Little things. So just to give you an example, right? I get this question a lot, like, how do you use your calendar for planning your work, right? I think it's just discipline that comes over time. Like it won't happen on day one, right? But getting like a better sense, like time boxing things, right? I think that definitely adds like a lot of value. It takes a certain amount of discipline, but then at the same time, like giving yourself the freedom to step away from it, is also important as well. Because let's say something you planned for like an hour takes you a couple of hours, right? And you have no freedom in your entire day. Like it's not
right,
like that task can go for a toss, but it's important for you to complete it, but then also review it and think about why it took you 2 hours, right? Like for new work, like if you give yourself some additional time, like a little bit of an additional breather, that's always very, very helpful. But then that reinforcement, as to what took you and what took you how much time, and planning in future accordingly, definitely helps quite a bit.
very true. And one more thing that you said that has also happened to me. Sometimes we tend to overestimate ourselves, right? So we make a very
Yeah.
big to-do list. So,
Yeah.
and like you said, you might get disappointed if you can't complete
Yes.
it, but that is all right. Like what you mentioned, that if you can't finish something, you drag it to the next day. I think that's a very realistic approach because it's not possible that on every single day we'll complete 100% of the items on our to-do list. So instead of
I
like
also
feeling
feel,
bad about it, just
yeah, I
move it to the
also
next.
feel that's the I also feel that's the number one reason for people to leave their to-do lists. It
Right.
just gets super long, and like as a human, like I mean, it's just human tendency. I don't want to see work, right? Like if something didn't work out, I don't want to take a look at it, right? Which is unfortunate, right? Like I definitely believe that to-do list is just your expectation out of yourself, right? And if you're unable to
Absolutely.
manage that, you are like on the path of getting disappointed.
Yes,
So
very
um,
true.
calendar just makes it real.
Right. So I have one question for you. So suppose you had a to-do list for the day, you had like 7 items or maybe 5 items, and you completed all of them before time. And now you have like 3 hours left in the day. What do you usually do? Do you allocate it to more work, or do you take time off for yourself?
I think it's important to check in with yourself, right? So as an entrepreneur, or as a founder of the company, I nearly always have things to do, right? So it's like it's very difficult for me to like not work, but I don't want to promote that in any way, right? It's important to check in with yourself. So if I've worked like really hard, nonstop for a few days, and few could mean like different for different people. It could be a day, it could be 2 days, right? Whatever it is, right? It's important to check in with yourself. And if you're up for more work, I would say go for it, right? And if you're not, if you need a break, definitely take that break for yourself, right? If you're through with the work that you plan to do in the entire day, I think you've checked all the boxes, and you're definitely good to go from there.
Right, that is so practical. And I think any person who is like, an entrepreneur or who doesn't have a 9 to 5 traditional job, I think they can also relate to this statement that there's always something to do. Like, the more time you spend working, the better your prospects will be. So there is that constant need to keep working all the time. But like you said, very important to check in with yourself and not push your limits because you don't want to be
Right.
burnt out. It's very hard to come back from burnout. So it's
Yeah.
important to take breaks when you need them. So yeah, amazing insights. Thank you so much for sharing them, Parth. My next question to you is: you have had a very long and interesting career before you founded the company. So what is your experience like how is the entrepreneurial life different from the 9 to 5 life, and what are some interesting insights that you didn't know before you actually started on this path of entrepreneurship? Would you like to share some of your learnings?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, by the way. So, I think when you say 9 to 5, right? I'm assuming that you are in your regular career trajectory, right, where you are, working for an organization, and I think like one of the major differences is just discipline. I think entrepreneurship, requires, or like founding a company, right? Or like essentially doing anything for yourself, right? Entrepreneurship is perhaps just a fancy way, but of putting it, but doing anything for yourself, building your own brand, building your own company, doing freelancer work. I think it just requires the highest form of discipline, right? Because there's nobody who's sitting on your back and saying, well, this is what was supposed to be done, and it hasn't been done yet, right? So since you are your own boss, you are your own manager, you need to be able to manage yourself, step one. So I think it just requires, for starters, the highest form of discipline, um, which I would say like isn't easy to achieve, right? I would say for starters, that's perhaps like the number one thing, right? What follows that is perhaps like things that are critical for achieving that. So these are just essentially peripheral elements which are important for you to remain disciplined, for your work. So I think it's important for you to be motivated all throughout, and uh, finding that motivation, is critical, right? So a lot of people get motivated by the money. So when you are an entrepreneur, when you are a founder, you don't necessarily have a steady state of income. So how do you manage yourself in those scenarios? Some people get motivated by the work that they are doing, which is why I think when you decide to start your own company, when you are in entrepreneurship, or you decide to do the work that you want to do, it has to really, really motivate you, because you find that motivation from within, right? And if you're not passionate enough about the work that you're doing, it's going to be like pretty hard for you to sustain. Uh, I think, if I were to summarize everything, right, it's discipline, and then remaining motivated to stay disciplined, right? But in addition to this, I would say, there's maybe like a couple other elements that come to my mind. Especially when you're working by yourself, you are gonna have like, it's like an emotional roller coaster of a ride, right? So all days are not bright and sunny. You're gonna have like rainy days. So it's important for you to survive those rainy days as well, and then keep pushing yourself hard, to get to those sunny days. Those sunny days will arrive as long as you can last long enough. How do you manage your own emotions, your team's emotions, and like everybody who's around you? which brings me to the final piece, which is um, like a psychological safety, or having like a backbone. And that's basically like people around you, people you surround yourself with. So that could be your team. So huge shout out to my co-founders. I absolutely love them. I love working with them. Right, they're always there to hold my back when I need it, and vice versa. The second is like friends and family. So a huge shout out to my friends and family as well, right? So having that support system is pretty critical as well. uh, so I think all these factors just like sort of come together um, to like help you become a better entrepreneur.
I really loved everything that you said, and they also resonated with me. I'm going to quickly sum up whatever you said so that the people who are watching, they can also, like, if they're taking notes, it will help them. First, you said is discipline. Discipline is important because we need to know how much to work, when to work. Otherwise, because there is no boss, you can just spend whole day Netflix and chill, and nobody's going to say anything to you, and we don't want that to happen. The next thing you said that you need to find your motivation. So this reminds me of a quote I read in this book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The quote is, if you know your why, you can survive anyhow. So, if you know your why, if you know why you're working, why you did this particular thing, why you chose this particular journey, then you can survive through rainy days also. Like you mentioned that, every day is not going to be bright and sunny. So I also like find a lot of motivation in that quote. Uh, Aside from that, having a backbone, it's always important, friends and family and amazing people to work with. I think that is like the primary need of every person, even if they're entrepreneurs or 9 to 5ers. But obviously, in entrepreneurship, since it's a lonely journey, having a support system definitely helps. On that note, we have a question from the audience, and the question is asked by Vishnu. It says that how did you find and manage your team to start your company?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Vishnu. So I think step one is like looking from your own network, right? So if you have, if you've worked previously in other organizations, if you already have like a little bit of a career experience, try and tap into your own network to find people who you've worked with in the past to join you on your journey. So it helps in a couple different ways. Number one is they understand you, you understand them, right? So you already have a rapport that you've built with them. So managing things becomes a lot more easier. The second piece is uh, I think the early employees that you want to join your company, to join you on your journey, are people who are also motivated by your vision, by what you're building. Uh, so chances are high that if you are tapping into your own network, these are people uh, who sort of relate to the problems that you have faced, right? Because it just increases the chances of, if you're solving your own problem, that um, it somehow sprinkled on them a little bit as well, right? The kind of problem that you're trying to solve for. Um, so I would say, if you're looking to start your own organization, anytime soon, tapping into your own network would be the first place to start. Followed by that, I would say, like, just going deeper into that network, right? So if it's not your friend, ask your friends if they know somebody. So getting somebody early on, it's always a little bit challenging. So tapping into like the next layer of your network, like second degree or third degree connects, that becomes like super helpful. And then lastly, last and final form is just your typical ways of finding people to join you on your journey, right? Which is like job boards. So depending on the kind of person you're looking for, right? There are like job boards out there. Um, and essentially like job listing sites. I would say that should be your last bet, but starting with your network, is always great.
Yeah, that's a very I think that's very practical way of saying that, like, before you build, you need to know awesome people. Otherwise, if you start from scratch, it's very hard. But yeah, networking is so important. And like you mentioned, if you connect with people, there must be a reason, right? So they'll also be motivated by what motivates you. And that's always a
Yeah.
great team, first initial team to have. Amazing. So, Parth, my next question to you is, if you had to retrace your career journey, wherever you have come until now, is there anything that you would do differently?
Um, Frankly speaking, no. I think um I think like your career isn't linear. So there aren't really any wrong steps that you take in your journey, right? So it's not like it's this step one, step two, step three, step four, step five, and then six is the holy grail, right? Like, so it doesn't work that way. When you are like starting your career, you need to have a starting point, right? And then after that, like I think experiment. Like whatever rocks your boat, like whatever it is that you feel like doing, whatever motivates you, and that could be like money, work, people that you're working with. There could be like a bunch of things that motivate you at each stage of your career. I would say like just go for it. I think in my own career, like there have been different motivation factors for me in different stages of my life, and uh, uh, I didn't think too much about it because there really isn't a wrong step. You can go from step one to step three, come back to step two if you feel like it. So, um, since careers are really non-linear, uh, and it can take all like shapes and forms, and you can go from one place to the other, come back, right? there, there, there's really so much that you can experiment with. If it doesn't work out, at least you will know that you gave it a shot and it didn't work out for whatever XYZ reasons. So after that, you go back to whatever it is you want to do next, or go back to where you came from. Like all of these things are possible. So like since it was a personal question, I would say that I wouldn't really want to change anything in my career and in my experiences, because ultimately, like where I've gotten to today, it's shaped from my previous experiences. Had I not had like even a single one of those, chances are high that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, and I absolutely love what I'm doing right now. So, uh, uh, I wouldn't want to change anything.
Whenever somebody asks me this question, I always give the same answer. I am not going to change anything, because looking back, there might be mistakes, there might be bad
Yeah.
steps that you took, but all of them led you here. So why change any of that? So amazing answer. Thank you so much for it. I really love the answer. I completely agree and resonate with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, also in retrospect, right? It's always easy to say, well, had I done it that way, my life would have been different, or things would have happened
Right.
differently, right? I mean, in retrospect, like it's always easy to, it's always easy to say something should have been done a certain way, but back then you had a certain mindset which was shaped on the data points that were made available to you back then, right? And there's no way you could have changed that decision at that point, right? So might as well just go with the flow, right? And be thankful for where you are today. Like, because very likely that wouldn't have happened had you not taken that career step. So it's important to just sort of be comfortable with that journey, comfortable with that process, and trust that process, most importantly, right? You have a long career, you have a long life, and like experiment and try everything that you want to.
I love that. It's so inspiring. I'm actually like feeling what you're saying. It's really inspiring. And I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching is feeling the same way. Amazing words, amazing advice, super actionable, super practical, and, very relatable as well. So thank you so much, Parth, for taking out time for this interview. And thank you so much for giving us amazing answers. I had really great time talking to you, and I'm sure my audience enjoyed it as well. I hope you had fun too.
Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Anansha, and I do want to thank the audiences as well for for staying around for the last 35-40 minutes, and being patient, and having like great questions. I hope they all had a great time, and I hope you too, Anansha.
Definitely, I'm really inspired. I'm motivated as well. Thank you so much, Parth.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Really, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
So, everyone, that brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you so much for being an amazing audience, asking amazing questions, and sharing all your reactions in the emojis. Really appreciate you, really appreciate your patience. And make sure you tune in next week because I'll have another amazing guest. But until then, bye, and I'll see you soon.